Hi guys, Charlie here. I want to make a new kind of video. I was just going to answer this question that I received, but I thought if I made a video on it, maybe some other people might show some interest and they might like this kind of thing. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a video that sort of answers a question that I received regarding the last episode I published of Mass Effect Andromeda, my Let's Play series on that. You can see that in the card up at the top corner right now. At the beginning of that video, there's this text effect. There's this effect that I've put in where the ship takes off and it goes and flies away, but as it's taking off, the Mass Effect Andromeda logo is revealed behind the ship, right? Or at least it appears to be behind the ship. Technically it is, and you'll see in a second, but the logo is revealed behind the ship, and then the ship flies away and the logo kind of disappears and it's sort of behind the scene. And in essence, I embedded an image within the actual scene. It doesn't look like it's above the scene. It looks like it's within the scene. So to give you a visual on that, so you don't have to necessarily go to the other video if you don't want to, I'm going to open up the sequence for the last video. This is a little red line here. This is Adobe Premiere CC, by the way. This little red line here means it's not rendered, so it's probably not going to play in full time or in real time. So I'm just going to go ahead and scrub. If you want to see it play in full time, you can look at the video that I just pointed out. So the ship is here, it moves up, and as it moves up, you can see that there's the Mass Effect Andromeda logo is revealed coming from behind the ship, right? It comes in, like behind the ship the whole time, right? And then as the ship flies away, it also kind of hides itself behind the environment, right? And that is the effect that we're going to be doing today in this video. Now I wanted to do it in my next video too. It does take a while, and I don't think I'm going to do this every video. But this will probably be the last one I do it, unless I can see a point where it's like creatively. I like to sort of play around with different things and be creative with certain things. So this is just something I tried out, and now that it sparked a comment, I might want to try it again. So here's the scene we're going to start. Obviously, this is a video that's not published yet. I have to edit it, but we're going to start out with this little scene right here where the ship comes in. And then it turns and it goes to the Nexus, okay? That's the scene we're working with. And what I want to do is I want to have the logo for Mass Effect Andromeda. I want that to appear right here. And so the ship is going to move and reveal the logo behind it. Almost like the logo was there the whole time, right? Because we kind of have a view of it as the ship comes in, but your focus is not going to be on that particular part of the sky like that. So as the ship goes in and it rotates, I want to reveal that there's a logo there, okay? So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the video layer that's here. And I'm going to start right about, I think, here. And maybe one frame up. Yeah. Maybe here. Maybe here. This is probably a good spot. So I'm going to take my blade tool and I'm going to cut the clip right here, okay? So there's now two separate clips, if you will. It's the same clip, but it's now two separate sections. It's been cut. You know, that's the blade tool would cut thing. As I scroll, I'm just going to scrub this way to the end of the scene because I'm not planning on having the logo go away this time. I'm not planning on anything obstructing the logo this time. So the logo is going to have to appear on the screen until it cuts to the next scene. So I'm going to kind of just scrub until that scene ends, right about here. Let's go one more. Until the next scene pops in. There we go. Okay, we're going to cut there. Now this is the clip then where the logo will be appearing on the screen. This is the clip we're going to be working with, okay? Now to work with this, we're going to be using a program called Adobe After Effects. Any of you who have ever done anything with Adobe products before may have seen it, and if you're any type of video creative in any way, you've undoubtedly heard of it and probably used it. So I'm going to right-click this clip, and I'm going to say replace with After Effects composition. Okay, so it's going to open up Adobe After Effects CC. It's going to create a new composition based on this clip, and it's going to import this particular section that I've outlined into that composition. That's all going to happen for me, and that's kind of the really cool thing about the Adobe suite. It's all integrated this way, which is probably the only thing I like about it. I'm more of a Final Cut editor myself, but this integration is pretty useful. Okay, so I was going to actually just start doing this myself, so I already had the composition like named, and then I thought, why don't I make a video on it? So we're just going to go ahead and replace the one that already exists. So this is going to open up a new composition, and here is the clip. Okay, and now this is the clip, the same clip you just saw, except now it's in After Effects. So everything's the same. It's the same clip you just saw. But what I want to do is I want to make the logo appear behind the ship, right about here, and then it's going to get revealed as the ship moves. It'll be behind the ship, and then the ship will just fly away and the logo will stay. Okay, that's the effect. A couple of things we're going to need to do for this. The first thing is I need to import my assets. So I'm going to go up here to the project, where all the files are. Import file, and I'm going to grab this Mass Effect Andromeda logo. This is the same logo that I was using in the last clip, or that I just showed you as an example of. So I'm going to drag this down into my composition here, and it's above. Now, I'm going to make a couple of changes to this logo because it's a little bit too small. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Probably about there is probably fine. And then I want to move it because I don't want it centered. So I'm going to move it over to right about here. This is right about where the ship is, but if it was behind the ship, you wouldn't be able to see it. And that's where I want it to start. So it's not actually there the whole time. It's only there right there like that. Okay, that's probably where I want this logo to be. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, there's a step to this. What's technically happening behind the scenes here is I have this video layer underneath the text, and then I'm going to have the exact same video layer over the text, playing in unison, in sync with its copy, right? So we literally have the text between the two video layers. And that's why I said it kind of was in the beginning when I started this video. I kind of said it is kind of behind the ship, because technically if you go by the composition, the text is actually behind the ship. That's the only way to make it happen. You actually have to have it that way. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to do Control-D and duplicate this. It's important that you do this in the timeline down here, because if you drag this clip into the timeline, what you'll end up with is the entire clip. You get the entire file. I don't want the entire file. I only want the section of the file that I'm working with, which is why I'm going to duplicate this layer. Then I'm going to put this over top of the Mass Effect Andromeda logo. Now the logo goes away, and that's because there's now a video clip above it, so it's in the way. The video clip here is in the way of our view of seeing the Mass Effect logo, which is located right here. I'm kind of like off and on hovering my mouse over the logo here. And so what I want to do now is we're going to start making a mask. The purpose of a mask is to hide or reveal certain sections of video or of an image or anything like that, and to control and manipulate where the image is revealed and where it's hidden. And that's exactly what we're doing here. The overall goal here is I'm going to be basically unrevealing. I'm going to basically be hiding the video clip as the image comes into frame. As this ship moves this way, I'm hiding more and more of the top clip in order to reveal what's underneath it. Make sense? So I've never made a video about this process before, so I'm not using proper terminologies, and I apologize for anyone who knows the proper terminologies. You might be annoyed by me not using them. I've just never made a video about this kind of process, this video process before, so I don't want to say I'm nervous, but I'm also like a little, I don't know, I just don't know how to talk about it really well. I usually just sort of just do it, and the people I go and work with, we just sort of do it. So, okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to only be manipulating the top video layer. I don't care anything about the logo anymore. I don't care about the bottom video layer. I only care about the top video layer now. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go up to the pen tool, which is up here, and we're going to make a mask around the outside of the ship. And I'm going to make a fair amount of points here because I want it to kind of curve with the ship. What's happening with this ship is not like some of the other effects that I do in this manner. Normally when I do this type of effect for a video or for a client or something, it's normally something like a car goes by on the road and I want a logo to be revealed behind the car. Or there's an athlete and he goes and slam dunks something. He's already in the air traveling in a straight line, and I want something to be behind him, or I want to place a face, or I want to put a person in a certain spot where they actually weren't, and I want to put them there, and I need to make sure that they stay there. Or another practical means that I've used this effect for before was the fact that we had a scene where there was a person, we needed a logo on their shirt that didn't actually exist on their shirt. So we needed we needed the logo to be there. It was a very quick clip. It's about 4 seconds long, which is not that short. It's 60 frames per second. There's a lot of frames there. But I motion tracked, which is a whole nother video in and of itself. But I motion tracked the logo to where it stayed on his shirt, and we blended it, and it looked really nice. I didn't do it all myself on that part, but whatever, it looked really nice. The problem with the clip is that someone walked in front of this person as the shot was happening. And so I needed to make it to where the logo stayed on his shirt, but it didn't actually show up over top of the person walking in front of him, right? So I had to put a mask around that person and then just kind of follow that person so that the logo was hidden behind the person at the same time the shirt was. Makes sense? So that's another practical means of using this, but I'd never really done it necessarily for a YouTube video, and I thought I would try it. So here we go. We're going to go up to here, and I'm just going to make a mask like this, and I'm just going to make a little bit of points here around the edge of the ship. You don't need this many points usually, but there's something happening with the ship here that's, like I said, it's a little bit different than what I'm used to, and that is that there's 3 things happening with the ship. There's the speed of the ship is changing. The perspective of our view of the ship's hull is changing because it's rotating. And on top of that, our distance from the target is also changing. So, and that's all happening at the same time. I don't think I need this many points down here, actually, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to go all the way over here, all the way over here, and all the way over here just because I can. And that's going to make, basically, so I don't have to worry about the mask then covering up the logo as we move it forward. It's just all going to be there, and that'll be fine. So, you can see the logo. It's here. We need to change that. What I've done now is I've basically made it to where the top video is inside the mask and everything that's outside the mask is hidden. I want it to be the inverse of that. So we're going to go to masks down here, and I'm going to click this little box that says inverted. Now the part within the mask, the part in the center of the mask here, this stuff is now the hidden part, and everything outside the mask is still revealed and still visible. So the top layer of video is still visible over top of the logo, but if you go into this part of the mask, the top part of the video, or the top video, is hidden right here. Make sense? So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to use something called keyframing. Again, this is basic 101 stuff for anyone who does video, but we're going to do a process called keyframing, and this is the process of basically having certain things happen at exact frames and exact moments in the video and being able to control that on a frame-by-frame basis. Keyframes can be used for a variety of different effects. Usually they're effects that take place over time, but in this case, we're going to be doing it on a frame-by-frame basis in many cases. So at least for a little while, and then after the logo is completely revealed and it's completely visible, then we're not going to worry about keyframing. We don't care anymore. As soon as the mask has served its purpose, we can ignore it. So let's get started. I'm going to go down to the mask menu down here, and I'm going to click Mask Path. I'm going to click this little time vary stopwatch here. This is going to create our first keyframe. And every time we move a frame, we can then adjust the mask, and it will change over time. The program is going to track exactly what we had going at any given time. So first frame, we got that done. I've made the mask. Second frame, let's move it. You see how the ship moves, but the mask did not move. We need the mask to move with the ship. So I'm going to create another keyframe. Now, for the future, when I click this keyframe button here, you don't actually have to click this to make a new keyframe. You can just simply make your changes, and the program will make a keyframe for you at those changes. In the future, I'm going to be doing that mostly, but I am going to be doing one keyframe in addition to our changes, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to move this whole mask to where it matches up with where the ship is. And you can see that as I move the mask, I'm hiding more of the top video clip, which is going to reveal the text underneath that video clip, right? And this looks okay. It looks really harsh, though. It won't look very natural being this harsh. So what we're going to do is apply a feather. Mask feather is right underneath mask path. And it's really light feather. You don't have to do a super big, but I'm going to say like maybe 4.0, let's say. Okay, now notice now that we've applied a feather that there's actually, it's not so harsh, right? It's not such a hard line. There's actually some softness to the edges, and that's what's really going to make it, I think that's going to make it look a lot better, having some softness around the edges like this. Plus, if you do that, you don't have to have your lines like this super rounded. You can actually have it somewhat straighter, and it won't matter as much, which is nice. Okay, so this looks good. I think it's being revealed in the right spots. I don't think there's anything wrong with what we've got going on this frame. So let's move one frame in the future. I'm going to kind of zoom in on where we are here, a little bit on the timeline here. So this is the one frame we're looking at. I'm going to go to the next frame, and notice how nothing happened, right? So the scene, whether it's because the ship is moving in a certain way, or just or probably the fact that the scene is not, it's probably pre-rendered. It's a pre-rendered scene in the game where it's at 30 frames per second probably. So the ship's not actually going to be moving every single frame. It's going to be moving every other frame, or sometimes it might move in 2 frames. It kind of depends on the movement of the ship, but it's not going to move every single frame. So this frame is the exact same frame as the other frame, right? So no movement is required of us. Move to the next frame, same thing. The ship didn't move. There's no reason to move the mask. The ship didn't move. Move the next frame. The ship moved now. And it's a pretty good sizable move. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back 1 frame from the movement. So right here we've identified there's movement. I'm going to go back 1 frame, back to where it was, and I'm going to make another keyframe. That's going to lock in the position for this clip. Now the reason why I'm doing it 1 frame back is because if I make a keyframe here instead and not here, what will happen is that my changes from this keyframe to this one will happen over time, not right away. When a motion between 2 keyframes, movement always happens gradually between 2 keyframes over time. So if I want to make sure that this always stays on the hull of the ship, I need to make sure I make another keyframe on this one. That way the movement over time from here to here is still happening, but there's no movement, so you won't see it. By doing it this way, I make sure that the mask always stays on my object. So move it 1 more keyframe this way, and now I can move the mask. Now as I move the mask, of course, After Effects has already made me a new keyframe. I don't need to make another one from here. And I'm going to go a little bit off the ship with my mask. My mask is slightly off the ship, and that's because of the feather. I don't want the feather to go, if I put this right on where the ship is, I end up kind of losing track of where it is because the logo is being revealed into me. But what'll end up happening is that because of the feather, the object I'm masking out will actually crowd over top of the ship, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to come right up to like this, just about to the ship, but not quite. And that way the mask actually ends up kind of fading into the hull almost, right? So the hull doesn't like, go over top of it, or you get what I'm saying. It doesn't go over top the hull. Okay, so that's good. That frame looks nice. Let's move to the next. Nothing happens. Cool. Move to the next. Something happens. Back 1 frame, keyframe, and then forward again. And let's move the mask. Now, if this was just a simple object, and if it was just simply moving from left to right across the screen, I wouldn't really need to reshape this mask all that much because our perspective and the distance and all that stuff doesn't change. It would mostly just be speed, which is not a big deal. However, because our perspective is changing, as well as the distance we are from the target, in this case the ship is moving towards us and then it's going to be moving away from us. And because of that distance, the size of the mask is going to have to be adjusted so that as the ship rotates, technically the curve that we're seeing is a different shape now. It's a slightly different angle of view, and therefore our mask may need to be adjusted. And so we can make micro adjustments to the shape of this, but I've got it pretty close to what we need right now, so I don't think it's going to be too crucial. If this was a professional project, I'd probably be going in and doing a lot more fine tuning here. But since this is just like a YouTube video, I don't think it's really necessary. I am absolutely going to be, however, using this effect in this episode. So I'm actually creating the intro for this episode, for this edit, while I'm editing, or while I'm casting this video as well. Kind of a double dipping. I like it. Okay, so this is good. Mask is fine. Next, nothing. Next, nothing. Next, we have something. Back 1 frame, mask, and then forward 1 frame, and let's move the mask. And then the ship is going to start rotating here, and that is when our perspective is going to change. I think this is probably good. I made this mask a pretty good shape already, so I don't think there's a whole lot I need to do here. We might need to get this just a tad bit closer. I'm going to put my pen over here, make another frame really quick. I put over here because it's just really easy for me to be able to start messing with the individual points. If I do that, if I make a new point, because then I get to edit with the points. If I don't make a new point first, then by default, when I grab one of these, it'll move the whole mask. I'm sure there's a better way to do that, but this is just, like I said, this is habits. All right, this is just habits that I've been just doing. So bad habits are going to be displayed in my video. I'm sure people will probably tell me that, and that's fine. You can totally do that in the comments, by the way, and I'm more than willing to adapt to new ways if there's more efficient ways to do something. Next frame, nothing, everything's good. Next frame, everything's good. Next frame, everything's good. Next frame, okay, movement. Back one frame, keyframe this, go forward one frame, and let's move this mask. It's pretty good. That's a pretty good jump right there. And you can see already that because the ship is rotating, our perspective is changing a little bit, and our shape of our mask is no longer going to be the best for this. I could probably try and move it up, but this curve no longer really matches anymore. So we're going to have to play around with the individual points now. So I'm going to come over here and just kind of fiddle with the different points until I get this mask to be kind of fiddle where get the mask to where it's where I want it. So there's too much blue right here. So I'm going to move this over, and we can see that we can actually get the curve to go right along the hull like that. Yep, there we go. Right along the hull. Down here where the N is, this might be a little bit too close. Nah, it looks good actually. Okay, that looks good. Cool. So next frame, no movement. Next frame, no movement. Next frame, there's movement. Back one frame, make the keyframe, and rinse and repeat all the way down until you get it done. So I'm going to keep going with this process. It's not a process that happens very quickly. Graphical effects stuff does take time. Special effects stuff like this does take time. But visual effects, I'm sorry, it's not special effects. Special effects are practical effects. Visual effects are artificial effects. Anyway, I'm going to keep doing this, digital effects, whatever you want to call it. And I will be right back once this is completed. Okay guys, so we're pretty close here to the final little bits here. Got basically one more keyframe to do, so let's make that one, and this is where the motion is, and we're just going to move this like that and reveal the rest of the logo. That's it. So, and then this mask will just stay right here. We don't need to do anything else with it. It'll just stay right here for the rest of the render. So if I zoom out a little bit here, let's see what the fruits of our labor are. Let's see how well this worked. So I make the keyframes like this. They started out like this. And then as we go forward, we can see that the logo just gets revealed as the ship moves down with it. Pretty cool, right? Some weird things happening here. Let's check this keyframe really quick right here. Make sure we're not missing anything. I don't think this is going to be a problem. Not because there's no way they can see the S here, but maybe this A is a little bit more cut off than it needs to be. So we can go in and fine tune these if we want to as well. So if we notice a keyframe that's off, make sure we're on the keyframe that starts that effect So we're gonna have to start here, let's say, and then I'm just gonna adjust this one right here so that it's just a little bit more this way, and then maybe take this one and go around the hull. So maybe we'll wrap right around that black zone. So there's a little bit more of the A showing on this side. So we'll just do that. And then we want to replicate that result kind of like over here as well, because, you know, it's going to be a replica of what it was, or it's the same as what it was. So let's move this down, move this over, and probably something like that. It's going to happen really, whoops, misclicked. Made a new mask, don't want to do that. It's going to happen pretty quick on the render here as it's moving, so it's not going to be a big deal. But let's just take a look. Pretty smooth. So we'll go ahead and incorporate that into our project. We'll do that by just hitting save. And our Premiere project actually has this replaced with a composition already. So Premiere already knows to use the composition we just made in this actual video here. So if I already in the project, I don't have to do anything. It's already there. So just play this forward. And remember, it's not real time. It's a red line. So it may not actually play in real time as the effect comes in. Oh, looked like it worked pretty well. Yeah, worked awesome. So there you go, guys. All said and done. I'll see you guys in the next video. If you like this kind of thing, if you're interested in more of this kind of stuff, maybe let me know. I'm not sure what else I can share. I don't really do a whole lot with special effects, but I might be able to do some like motion tracking stuff. But there's plenty of tutorials online for that stuff already. But I don't know. If you guys want to see, let me know. Comments. Hit the like button if you like it. Subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you next time.
All right, guys. Welcome back to Mass Effect Andromeda. We're here at the next...